Exactly. So semi-final the day before. So there still is a semi-final, even though I think if you polled the riders, I don't know if anyone liked it. And I'm just speaking of fact on what the riders said. I'm not giving an opinion. That's now the day before. So that's a new thing. And then I think the second thing is we've got a new venue, which will also be a brand new track, but apparently they got some really good enduro trails and terrain. So that's cool. But maybe for the semi-finals beforehand, Alan, that maybe comes a little bit into the preparation and planning the season and fitness. Did you guys adjust a little bit more? Because race day is now back to, just one run on that day. But then, the quali and semi-final day is going to be a big day
Yeah,
before where you really
those
want to
back to
perform.
backs. The back to backs are hard physically, but I'd say they're hard mentally as much as anything, because each run, if you look at sort of the incremental gains in performance and then the drop in time, everyone's getting faster each run as you go through. And the difficult part is obviously if you've got a qualifying run and you think you've given it, oh, I've had a good run there, and you've got to turn pretty much straight around, get yourself recovered and back up the hill. That's hard. It's very hard to build yourself back up to go again. And the mental stress of that is often overlooked. It's really hard to quantify it. People will often ask me, I have these conversations, how do you quantify the workload of a downhill run? And it's really quite difficult to do, because you're essentially at maximum heart rate, but for the duration of the track, and you've got all this risk involved. And at the same time, if you were to plot that on a training peaks, you wouldn't see the mental sort of toll of it. So I'm glad that it's sort of split. I think I prefer having that one and done race run on race day. I'm still not, I'm still conflicted on the benefits of the semi and how it really helps. But we've got to work to it. And ultimately, as soon as that qualifying's done, I've done enough with the riders to try and explain the importance of the recovery between, and just getting them straight away from that finish line, because you can end up standing around chatting and have I qualified? Have I qualified? You can't control that bit. You need to bugger off and go and spin your legs off and recover. And if you have qualified, then you're in a position to go back up the hill, and that's going to be the most difficult thing.
Also, it's also going to just steal out of practice time, because the only way to have two race runs on qualifying day, what used to be qualifying day, the day before final, is to scale back. That practice session on qualifying day is now going to be shorter, which means you essentially going to have one day to practice. And if it's a new track or the same track, or if you run into issues or break it, get a flat, or whatever, because qualifying day is now going to be like essentially like almost a full race day. You're probably going to get two runs in the morning, and then you have to do quali and race. So I foresee probably more crashes in qualifying than we've ever had before, because maybe riders not being quite ready to run that race pace. I am happier to see racing standalone, as Alan said, on the Sunday, and make that an important day. But it almost makes the semi-final, even putting on quali day, it's just I'm surprised they kept it. I think ultimately they want to have a harsh cut into the field in the finals, and they're just slowly spreading out and not trying to not surprise us in doing it. It just seems like an unnecessary race. I don't know. I just, and if I go by the pink bike rider big poll reviews, everyone's in agreement. So
Yeah. I mean, I say I'm not putting an opinion on that. I think what it will do is it forces the first day of practice to be even more important, because you're only going to probably have one less. When there was just quali the day before, you'd probably do three at the most, then qualifying, then the race day would be two, and then one. So now before quali, you're just going to do two, then a quali, then a semi. But so the first day of practice, it's really important that they give enough time.
Super.
They give enough time for if there's lift issues, enough time if you have a flat, which you probably will, and the mechanics need to be on it with spares and all that. So it's important that you really load your practice on that first day. That's going to be probably one of the biggest things. Excuse me. And then mentally, if you qualified and you didn't qualify that good, you had the afternoon to walk the track, maybe overnight to mentally figure it out, because you knew the next day in semis you had to really up your game to get in the top 30. Now you've got to do that just mentally. You've just got to mentally go from, shit, I just qualified 40th. That means in the semis, I've really got to step it up to get into the top 30. You've got to do that on your own mentally. So it's going to be interesting to see which riders sort of adjust to that. Yes, it's now at least a one run format on Sunday, but yeah, like I say, the poll and the opinion is out there. I don't need to blabber on about it anymore. It just certainly, maybe Alan, you've spoken to about recovery being paramount.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things to definitely mention here. The first is when you talk about the teams. You had the comparison with a frameworks, sort of quite small privateer setup versus a big factory setup. And you're like, well, what's the difference? Do we really need this difference? Are they going to be able to compete? As Sven's explained, if practice time is shortened, having people up on the track is a huge advantage. If you've got the syndicate have 2 people trackside, Commensal have a couple of people trackside. If you're trying to get up to speed and get onto the right line quickly, having someone trackside is a massive advantage. I can be on track and pretty much send video down saying, this is the line you need to be on now. You need to get onto this. And if you're not on there, you need to make an adjustment. If you haven't got anyone trackside because you're running a smaller operation, you've simply not got the staff for that. It takes a lot of thought. You've got to review your own GoPros. You can't really compare to anyone because you're not standing trackside yourself. So that makes it really difficult. And it may be that some riders will reduce their overall performance because they've not been able to maximize their sort of track strategy, should we say. And then the other side that people might not quite understand is on qualifying day. Qualifying day was quite a nice day. You had practice in the morning. They flipped the start time. So the fastest racer basically went first. So the seeded riders would come down and we'd be done by probably 2:00? In terms of, the athletes I work with. And that would give us the afternoon to recover, but then also go up onto the track and walk the track. Everyone would walk the track after qualifying. Now they've got 2 runs and it's going to push the demand onto that track walk, maybe even later. And you're going to have riders who've had 2 race runs in their legs. Are they going to walk the track? Is it actually a sensible thing for them to do? People overlook walking a track. Fort William, that's some people will go on holiday and their whole day would be walking from the top of that track down. That's their day. But we're trying to do it after 2 full exertion race runs. So it definitely adds an element to the preparation and the demand on the rider. If you're getting down at 6:00 and you're knackered, that's not great for the race day tomorrow. What have you learned? Is there a benefit? Should you be sending someone like me up there to do it for you and trust that if I see anything worth mentioning, I'll tell you? Or do you need to kick every route, on your way down?
Yeah, I mean, I know where I stand on that. I think the course walk after, if they have 2 runs like that, it's not worth it. Let's be honest. If you ask the rider to name a few spots that he needs to look at, like you said, it might be 2 or 3, and maybe he needs to outsource that. He really needs to trust his instincts and skill level, I think. But that's something you can help them with, is talk them in or out of that. Some riders do mentally need to tick it off. I know Greg gets a lot from course walks, but other riders maybe need to be more honest with themselves if they're really going to benefit from it and then ruin themselves physically.
Yeah, I think they've only got one more run.
We've got to do what you've proposed so many times ago last year.
I know.
Qualify 40 riders. Let the rest of them not do a semi-final. The guys that aren't top 40 do a LCQ, 10 more riders go into the final. They can still only broadcast 30. They would have taped the other 20, and you have the guy that's in the hot seat. The broadcast opens with a hot seat guys run, and then you get into your top 30. It's just an easy product and easy to consume.
But I think I'm going to go formal with it, Sven. We'll do it offline. I think I'm going to put a proposal together, because I even explained it to my wife, and I said, okay, I'm going to explain you something. I'm really jazzed about this, but if I can explain it to someone that watches a bit with me, and she's like, I totally get that. Well, yeah, because what is the product of so if you're trying to sell semifinals on YouTube or views and stuff, like, what are you selling? Okay, it's a race. Could you imagine tuning in to go, oh my goodness, who's going to get into the final? So you qualify 30 or whatever the numbers, you can adapt the numbers. 30 go through.
Yeah.
Then now people are going to argue and say, okay, but now you're giving someone else a second run. dude, if you're a top rider, you don't want the second run. The second run is the next 30 riders. So those riders can go up again, and there's 10 spots available. So if someone doesn't get to the final the next day, which might be 40 riders, you've had 2 chances. You can't actually complain. Right now, if you qualify 5th as a wild card rider, you haven't qualified. All you've got yourself is into the semi. If something happens, like a flat tire or something out of your control, you don't get to the final. So where is the David versus Goliath story?
No,
Where's the Ronan Dunn before he was Ronan Dunn? I'm like, you want those stories. And if 30 is the number you need for broadcast, or 40, we can get to that number. But I think there's a more exciting product you could develop. And it's really simple. What are we watching after quali? Well, we're watching the last chance qualifier. What is that? Well, the top 10 of this bracket can race their way into the final.
Through.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
Holy
shit, Greg Minar's in there. Danny Hart had an issue. He's in there. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so we spoke about it at nauseum, and I think it's time to put it on paper and just, pick it apart a bit and see where the holes are in it.